The massive ship moved through space like a floating city. Its silver hull gleamed under the light of Earth's sun. Ambassador Veltar stood on the bridge, looking at the small blue planet ahead. His forearms folded behind his back as he watched the third planet from the star humans called Sol. Veltar had done this many times before. For 300 years, he had traveled from world to world, meeting new species and bringing them into the Galactic Council. It was always the same. The new species would be scared at first, then curious, then grateful for the gifts the Council offered. The gifts were always good. Advanced medicine that could cure any disease, energy sources that never ran out, faster-than-light travel that opened the galaxy to exploration, food production systems that ended hunger forever. In return, the new species just had to follow the Council's laws and share their planet's resources. It was a fair deal. 847 species had joined the Council this way. Not one had ever said no. The communications officer, a young Thraxian with bright green scales, looked up from her station. "Ambassador, we are receiving a transmission from the planet." Veltar nodded. "Put it on the main screen." The screen showed a human woman in a blue uniform. She had short brown hair and serious eyes. Behind her, Veltar could see what looked like a command center with many humans working at strange devices. "Unknown vessel," the woman said. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered our solar system without permission. State your business." Veltar stepped forward and activated the translator. He had learned that new species often responded better when he spoke their language. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Ambassador Veltar of the Galactic Council. We come in peace to offer you membership in our great alliance of worlds." Admiral Chen listened carefully. She looked at something off-screen, then back at the camera. "We appreciate your visit, Ambassador. However, we must decline your offer. Please, leave our system immediately." The bridge fell silent. Veltar's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. The communications officer looked shocked. Even the ship's captain, an old warrior from the Krell Empire, seemed surprised. "I believe there has been a misunderstanding," Veltar said slowly. "We have not yet explained the benefits of joining the Council. We offer technology beyond your current understanding. Medicine that could save millions of lives. Energy systems that would end your dependence on primitive fuels." "We understand your offer," Admiral Chen replied. "Our answer is still no. You have 12 hours to leave our system. After that, we will consider your presence an act of aggression." The transmission ended. Veltar stared at the blank screen. In 3 centuries of diplomatic service, nothing like this had ever happened. New species were supposed to be eager to join the galaxy's greatest civilization. They were supposed to be honored by the invitation. "Ambassador," said Captain Vorn, the old Krell warrior who commanded the ship. "Perhaps they do not understand what they are refusing. Many primitive species fear what they do not know." Veltar nodded thoughtfully. "You may be right, Captain. Send a cultural analysis team to study their history and communications. We need to understand how these humans think." For the next 8 hours, the Council's best xenosociologists studied everything they could find about humanity. They watched human entertainment programs, read their literature, and analyzed their historical records. What they found disturbed them. Dr. Silas, the team's lead researcher, presented his findings to Veltar in the ambassador's private quarters. The elderly scientist's tentacles writhed nervously as he spoke. "Ambassador, this species is unlike any we have encountered. Their history is filled with examples of small groups fighting against overwhelming odds. They have a concept they call freedom that seems more important to them than survival itself." Veltar poured himself a cup of Altarian tea. "Explain." "Look at these examples," Dr. Silas said, activating a holographic display. 300 Spartan warriors fighting 10,000 Persians at Thermopylae. The American colonists rebelling against the British Empire, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, the French Resistance. In each case, humans chose to fight and die rather than submit to superior force. But surely they understand the benefits of cooperation, Veltar said. Every species learns this. Eventually. 2-1. That's just it, Ambassador. They seem to value independence more than security. They have a saying, "Give me liberty, or give me death." Many of them appear to mean it literally. Are personate. Veltar set down his teacup. How many humans are there? Approximately 8 billion on their home world, with several million more on colonies throughout their system. And they all think this way? Dr. Silas hesitated. Not all of them, certainly, but enough that their leaders feel confident, refusing our offer. There's something else. Ambassador. What? They've been preparing for contact with alien species for over a century. They have contingency plans for peaceful contact and hostile invasion. They seem to have assumed that any advanced alien civilization would try to conquer them. Veltar stood and walked to the window that showed Earth hanging in space. Such a small, blue world. So fragile-looking. It was hard to believe that 8 billion creatures lived there, and that they had collectively chosen to reject the greatest offer in galactic history. What do you recommend, Doctor? I suggest we try a different approach. Show them the consequences of refusing council membership. Perhaps when they understand what they're truly rejecting, they will reconsider. Veltar nodded slowly. Prepare another transmission. But this time, we'll show them what happens to worlds that stand alone in the galaxy. As the great ship adjusted its position above Earth, none of the council representatives understood what they were really dealing with. They saw humanity's refusal as ignorance that could be corrected with proper education. They had no idea that they had just encountered the first species in the galaxy's history that preferred dangerous freedom to comfortable slavery. The second phase of first contact was about to begin. 3 days passed after the first failed contact. Ambassador Veltar had spent those days reviewing every successful first contact in council history. Surely there was something he could learn. Some approach that would work with these stubborn humans. The answer came to him during his morning meditation. Sometimes, new species needed to see the council's benevolence in action before they could trust their words. A demonstration of goodwill might open the door to proper negotiations. Veltar called his staff to the main conference room. The circular table accommodated representatives from 12 different council species, each an expert in their field. We will show the humans our good intentions, Veltar announced. Dr. Reams, what can our medical scanners tell us about human health problems? The insectoid doctor clicked his mandibles together as he checked his data pad. Their colony on Kepler 442b is experiencing an outbreak of what they call Martian fever. It's a viral infection that affects their respiratory system, quite deadly for their species. Perfect. We'll cure their plague, then request a meeting. Once they see what council medicine can do, they'll surely reconsider our offer. The council ship moved to the human colony world of Kepler 442b. It was a dusty planet with large mining operations scattered across its surface. The human population was only about 50,000, but the plague was spreading quickly. Veltar sent a message to the colonial governor. Governor Martinez, we have observed the medical crisis on your world. As a gesture of friendship, we offer our assistance. Governor Martinez was a weather-beaten woman in her 60s. She had spent most of her life on frontier worlds and had the practical nature that such places demanded. Her response was cautious, but grateful. We appreciate any help you can provide, Ambassador. Our medical facilities are limited here. The Council's medical team worked for 6 hours. Their nanobotic healing systems eliminated the virus from every infected human on the planet. Their advanced synthesizers produced enough medicine to prevent future outbreaks. It was a miracle by human standards. When the work was done, Veltar contacted Governor Martinez again. The crisis has been resolved. All your people are healthy. We ask only for a chance to speak with Earth's leaders about council membership. Governor Martinez smiled. Thank you, Ambassador. You've saved thousands of lives. I'll forward your request to Earth immediately. The reply from Earth came 12 hours later. Admiral Chen appeared on screen again, this time with several other human officials beside her. Ambassador Veltar, the people of Kepler 442b have told us about your assistance. We are grateful for your help and the lives you saved. However, our answer regarding council membership remains the same. We respectfully decline. Veltar felt his four hearts skip a beat. But surely you can see the benefits of our medical technology. We could eliminate disease from all your worlds. We understand the benefits, Ambassador. We also understand the cost. We've studied your council carefully since your arrival. We know what membership really means. We know what membership really means. A young human stepped forward. He wore a simple civilian uniform but carried himself with authority. Ambassador, I'm Dr. James Harrison, head of our Xenosociological Research Division. We've analyzed the political structure of your council for the past 72 hours. Dr. Harrison activated a holographic display that showed the council's territory. You control the resources of 847 worlds. You have unlimited manpower from species that have no choice but to serve. You've created a galaxy-wide empire, disguised as a voluntary alliance. The Council provides protection and prosperity to all member species. Veltar protested. At the cost of their independence, Admiral Chen said. We've noticed something interesting, Ambassador. None of your member species have their own military forces. None of them control their own resources. They've traded freedom for security, and now they have neither. Veltar's diplomatic training took over. You misunderstand our system. All species benefit equally from Council membership. Do they? Dr. Harrison asked. Then why haven't any of them ever left? In 800 years of Council history, not one species has chosen to withdraw their membership. Either you've achieved perfect universal satisfaction, which seems unlikely, or leaving isn't really an option. The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Veltar felt anger rising in his chest. These primitive humans dared to question the greatest civilization in galactic history? They had barely learned to leave their own star system. And they thought they understood galactic politics better than a council ambassador with 3 centuries of experience? Captain Vorn stepped beside Veltar. The old Krell warrior's scarred face showed no emotion, but his message was clear. Ambassador, Captain Vorn said quietly, perhaps it is time for a more direct approach. Some species require a clearer understanding of their situation before they can make rational decisions. Veltar nodded slowly. Admiral Chen, we have tried to approach you with friendship and generosity. You have refused both. Perhaps you need to understand the reality of your position more clearly. The ambassador gestured to Captain Vorn, who activated the ship's external displays. Suddenly, space around Earth filled with light, as dozens of massive warships decloaked. Each ship was 3 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that could crack a planet's crust. The humans on screen showed no visible fear, but Veltar noticed their body language grow more tense. This is the Council's pacification fleet, Veltar said. These 40 ships represent enough firepower to sterilize every world in your system. We prefer not to use such methods, but sometimes peaceful species require protection from their own poor decisions. Admiral Chen looked at the display of warships, then back at Veltar. Is that a threat, Ambassador? It's a clarification. You can join the Council voluntarily and enjoy all the benefits of membership, or you can force us to bring order to your system through other means. The choice is yours. Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she leaned forward and spoke with a voice like ice. Ambassador Veltar, let me clarify something for you. We've spent the last week studying your council and your methods. We know about the Krex Empire. We know about the Altarian resistance. We know about every species that ever said no to your generous offer. She paused and looked directly into the camera. We also know what happened to them. You gave us 72 hours to leave our system. We're extending the same courtesy to you. You have 72 hours to remove all council forces from human space. After that, we will consider your presence an act of war. The transmission ended. Captain Vorn looked at Veltar with something that might have been respect. They have courage, Ambassador. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. Veltar stared at the blank screen. For the first time in 3 centuries, a species had seen the full might of the Council fleet and refused to surrender. He didn't know whether to admire their bravery or pity their stupidity. Captain, prepare the pacification fleet for limited engagement. Perhaps losing one small colony world will help them see reason. The Council pacification fleet moved toward Kepler 442b like a pack of metal predators. 40 massive warships, each carrying enough firepower to flatten a city, approached the small mining world that had been saved by Council medicine just days before. Captain Vorn stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying tactical displays. The humans had been given every chance to see reason. Now, they would learn what happened to species that defied the Council's generous offers. "What are our orders, Captain?" asked Commander Zeth, his second-in-command. "Minimal casualties," Vorn replied. "Destroy their defensive installations and any military vessels. Accept surrender when they offer it. The Ambassador wants them frightened, not extinct." The fleet's sensors showed a lightly defended world. 3 small patrol ships orbited the planet, and there appeared to be some kind of defensive grid around the main colony. Nothing that could seriously threaten a Council warship. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface," reported the communications officer. "Put it on screen." Governor Martinez appeared on the display. The same woman who had thanked them for curing the plague now looked tired but determined. "Captain Vorn, I assume you're here to demonstrate Council authority. I want you to know that we've evacuated all non-essential personnel from the colony, but we won't surrender our world without a fight." Vorn felt a twinge of respect for the human leader. "Governor, your courage is admirable but pointless. We have no desire to harm civilians. Surrender now, and your people will be treated well." "I'm sorry, Captain, but that's not going to happen." The transmission ended. Vorn turned to his weapons officer. "Begin the attack. Target military installations only." The Council ships opened fire with precision energy beams designed to disable rather than destroy. They expected the human defenses to crumble within minutes. Instead, something unexpected happened. Every human on the planet fought back. The miners weren't soldiers, but they had turned their industrial equipment into weapons. Massive drilling machines fired explosive charges at approaching Council shuttles. Construction mechs wielding plasma cutters charged at landing parties like ancient knights. Even the civilian population carried small arms and fought with desperate fury. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was what came next. Captain Vorn watched his tactical display in disbelief as new contacts appeared throughout the system. Ships were jumping out of hyperspace around Kepler 442b. Not military vessels, but civilian ships of every description. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, private yachts, even converted mining barges. "Captain," his sensor officer called out, "I'm detecting over 200 human vessels approaching. They appear to be civilians." "That's impossible. No civilian would voluntarily fly into a battle zone." But the sensor data didn't lie. The approaching ships were broadcasting civilian identification codes, but they were also powering weapon systems that shouldn't have existed on commercial vessels. The largest ship in the civilian fleet was a converted cargo hauler called the Iron Bull. Its captain was a gruff woman named Rebecca Stone, who had spent 30 years hauling supplies between human colonies. Captain Stone opened a channel to the Council fleet. "This is Captain Rebecca Stone of the Merchant Marine Emergency Response Fleet. We're here to evacuate our people from Kepler 442b. Any interference will be met with force." Commander Zeth looked confused. "Captain, should we warn them away?" Before Vorn could answer, the civilian ships opened fire. They didn't fight like soldiers. Their tactics made no sense by Council military standards. Cargo ships rammed Council vessels, trading their own destruction for critical damage to the enemy. Passenger liners used their mass to shield smaller ships, while those vessels fired improvised weapons. The converted mining ship, Deep Digger, flew directly into a Council destroyer's engines, destroying both ships in a massive explosion. As the wreckage scattered, Captain Elena Vasquez sent her final transmission. "Tell Earth we held the line." Vorn had fought in dozens of conflicts, but he had never seen anything like this. Military forces were expected to calculate risks and minimize losses. These humans seemed to consider their own lives acceptable casualties if it meant protecting their people. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Council forces had superior technology and training, but the humans had something else. They fought like every ship was the last defense between the enemy and their families. Governor Martinez coordinated the ground defense from her command bunker. She watched the orbital battle on her screens, while explosive charges from Council bombardment shook the walls around her. "Governor," said her aide, Lieutenant Torres, "we're receiving reports from across the planet. The mines are holding, but we've lost contact with Sectors 7 and 12. What about the civilian evacuation?" 60% complete. Captain Stone's people are getting our non-combatants off-world, but they're taking heavy casualties. Doing it. Another explosion rocked the bunker. Dust fell from the ceiling as the emergency lights flickered. "Ma'am," Torres continued, "maybe we should consider surrender. We've made our point." Governor Martinez looked at the tactical display showing human and Council ships dying in orbit above them. Then she looked at the evacuation reports showing thousands of civilians safely escaping to other human worlds. "No surrender, Lieutenant. Our job isn't to win this battle. Our job is to show the galaxy that humans don't kneel." She activated the colony's emergency broadcast system, sending a signal that would reach every human world and be picked up by anyone with the right equipment. "This is Governor Martinez of Kepler 442b. We are under attack by the Galactic Council Pacification Fleet. We are not surrendering. We are not negotiating. We are fighting for our right to exist as free people." Her voice carried across space to listening posts throughout human territory and beyond. To anyone hearing this message, we are not warriors by choice, but by necessity. We will not kneel to anyone who would trade our freedom for their protection. We will not submit to anyone who calls slavery membership. If we die here today, let it be known that we died free. The message was picked up not just by human receivers, but by monitoring stations throughout Council space. For the first time in 800 years, member species of the Galactic Council heard someone fighting back. When the battle finally ended, both sides had paid a terrible price. The Council had won, but barely. They had destroyed the human defensive fleet and occupied the planet, but they had lost 12 warships and thousands of crew members. More importantly, they had lost something they didn't even realize they could lose: the appearance of invincibility. Captain Vorn stood in the ruins of Governor Martinez's command bunker. The human leader had died at her post, refusing surrender even when Council troops reached her position. "Captain," said Commander Zeth, "what do we tell the ambassador?" Vorn looked at the tactical reports, showing the cost of victory. 12 ships destroyed, 6 more heavily damaged, 3,000 Council personnel dead or wounded, all to take one small mining world from a species that barely had spaceflight. "Tell him we won," Vorn said quietly. But also tell him that if every human world fights like this one, we're going to need a much bigger fleet." What neither Captain Vorn nor Ambassador Veltar understood was that the Battle of Kepler 442b had already accomplished its real purpose. Governor Martinez's final transmission had been heard across the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the Council's subjects had witnessed successful resistance. The war that would reshape the galaxy had just begun. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the war room deep beneath Geneva, surrounded by holographic displays showing the deployment of Council forces throughout human space. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Kepler 442b, and the full-scale invasion she had expected was finally beginning. General Marcus Webb, head of Human Space Command, pointed to the tactical display. Intelligence reports show Council fleets massing in 3 sectors. Best estimate is 200 ships total, approaching from multiple vectors. "They're not taking any chances this time," Chen observed. "What's our current status?" "All human worlds have been placed under martial law. Industrial production has shifted to full wartime footing. The emergency defense protocol is in effect." Chen nodded grimly. The emergency defense protocol was something humanity had hoped never to use. Every civilian facility capable of supporting military operations had been converted. Factories that once made consumer goods now produced weapons and ammunition. Shipyards that built cargo haulers now constructed warships. Even schools and hospitals had been turned into training centers and strategic supply depots. But the most significant change was in the human population itself. Every adult citizen between 18 and 60 had been activated for military service. Not just as soldiers, but as part of an integrated defense network that turned every human world into a fortress. Dr. Lisa Park, the head of the Xenotechnology Division, approached the command table, carrying a data pad. "Admiral, we have an update on Project Reverse Engineering. For the past 3 months, human scientists had been studying every piece of Council technology they could find. The medical equipment left behind on Kepler 442b had provided crucial insights into Council energy systems and materials science." "What did you find, Doctor?" "Their technology is more advanced than ours. But it's also standardized across their entire civilization. They use the same power systems, the same weapon designs, the same shield configurations. It makes them efficient, but it also makes them predictable." Dr. Park activated her data pad, showing technical schematics on the main display. "We've developed countermeasures for their standard weapons and found weaknesses in their shield systems. More importantly, we've figured out how to disrupt their faster-than-light communications." General Webb leaned forward. "Explain." "Council ships communicate through quantum entanglement networks that operate on specific frequencies. We've built jammers that can cut their fleets off from Central Command. Without coordination from Council High Command, individual ship captains will have to make their own tactical decisions." "And that helps us how?" Chen asked. "Because Council doctrine relies heavily on centralized control," Dr. Park explained. "Their captains aren't trained to adapt quickly to changing situations. They follow predetermined battle plans. If we can disrupt their communications and force them to improvise, we can exploit their lack of flexibility." Chen studied the technical data. Human military doctrine was exactly the opposite of the Council's approach. Human commanders were trained to adapt, improvise, and take initiative when communications failed. It was a doctrine born from humanity's chaotic history of warfare, where no battle plan ever survived contact with the enemy. "How long before the jammers are ready for deployment?" "They're already in production. We'll have them installed on every major ship and defensive platform within the week." The door to the war room opened, and Captain Rebecca Stone entered. The former merchant captain now wore the uniform of the Civilian Defense Corps, a new organization that coordinated the efforts of non-military personnel in the war effort. "Admiral, I have a report from the outer colonies." Captain Stone had survived the Battle of Kepler 442b and had become something of a hero among the civilian population. Her merchant marine fleet had been officially incorporated into the Human Defense Force. bringing their unconventional tactics and willingness to sacrifice everything for the cause. What's the situation, Captain? Every civilian ship capable of mounting weapons has been converted. We now have over 3,000 armed civilian vessels ready for deployment. They're not pretty, and they won't win any fleet engagements. But they can cause a lot of damage to anyone who underestimates them. What about morale? Stone's expression grew serious. Admiral, I've been to every human world in the past 2 months. I can tell you that our people are ready to fight. They've seen the intelligence reports about Council member species. They know what we're really fighting against. The intelligence reports Stone referred to painted a disturbing picture of life under Council rule. Member species had no independent governments, no control over their own resources, and no right to leave the Council once they joined. Children were educated in Council schools that taught loyalty to galactic civilization over loyalty to their own species. Military service in Council forces was mandatory, and the best young people from member worlds were taken away to serve in distant sectors. It wasn't slavery in the traditional sense, but it was the complete elimination of independence and self-determination. Every member species lived comfortable lives, as long as they followed Council directives without question. Admiral, said General Webb, we need to discuss deployment strategy. The Council fleets will arrive in approximately 72 hours. Where do we make our stand? Chen looked at the strategic display showing human space. 23 worlds, dozens of asteroid mining operations, and millions of people who had chosen to fight rather than surrender their freedom. Everywhere, she said simply. We don't retreat. We don't consolidate our forces. We make them fight for every world, every space station, every asteroid mine. They want to conquer human space? Fine. But we'll make them pay for every cubic meter. It was a strategy that defied conventional military wisdom. Any normal military force would concentrate their strength to defend the most important worlds while sacrificing the less critical ones. But the human approach was different. Sir, Webb said carefully, that strategy will result in massive casualties. Yes, it will. But it will also force them to spread their forces across dozens of targets. They can't bring their full strength to bear against any single world, which means we can't be completely overwhelmed at any single point. Captain Stone nodded in understanding. It's the same strategy we used in the Merchant Marine. When pirates attacked convoy routes, we didn't just protect the most valuable ships. We made them fight for every cargo hauler, every supply vessel. Even if they won individual battles, the cost made piracy unprofitable. Exactly. Chen agreed. The Council has ruled the galaxy for 8 centuries because they could bring overwhelming force against any single enemy. But they've never faced an enemy willing to fight a war of attrition. They're not prepared for the kind of losses we're willing to accept. Dr. Park looked troubled. Admiral, are you saying we're planning to lose? No, Doctor. I'm saying we're planning to win by making victory too expensive for them to afford. The Council controls 847 worlds. If they have to tie down significant forces occupying human space, they can't use those forces to maintain control elsewhere. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity wasn't just fighting for their own freedom. They were fighting to break the Council's control over the entire galaxy. General Webb pulled up casualty projections on his datapad. The numbers were sobering. Current estimates suggested that humanity might lose 60% of their population before the war ended. But those same projections showed the Council losing nearly 30% of their total military strength. Are our people really willing to pay that price? Webb asked. Admiral Chen thought about Governor Martinez's final transmission from Kepler 442b. She thought about Captain Stone's reports from the outer colonies. She thought about the millions of humans who had volunteered for military service knowing they probably wouldn't survive the war. General, 3 months ago the Council offered us the greatest deal in galactic history. Advanced technology, unlimited resources, eternal peace, and prosperity. All we had to do was give up our independence. She gestured toward the strategic display showing human fleets preparing for battle throughout their territory. Does it look like we said yes? The war had lasted 2 years. What the Council had expected to be a quick pacification campaign had become a grinding conflict that consumed ships and lives at an unprecedented rate. Ambassador Veltar stood in the Council High Command Center on the capital world of Proxima Majoris, watching tactical displays that showed the current state of the conflict. Of the 23 human worlds, 14 had fallen to Council forces. But holding those worlds required permanent occupation forces, and the human resistance had never stopped fighting. Every day brought new reports of sabotage, guerrilla attacks, and civilian uprisings that drained Council resources. Supreme Commander Kaleth, the Council's highest military authority, approached Veltar with a grim expression. The 4-armed Altarian had commanded Council forces for over a century, but this war had aged him visibly. Ambassador, we need to discuss the strategic situation. Well, Veltar turned from the displays. What's our current status? We've deployed 60% of the Council's total military force to human space. We've lost over 400 ships and more than 2 million personnel. And we're no closer to complete victory than we were 6 months ago. The numbers were staggering. The Council's military had been built to maintain order across a peaceful galaxy, not to wage total war against a determined enemy. Losing nearly half their fleet to conquer less than 20 worlds was unsustainable. What about the remaining human forces? Commander Kaleth activated a tactical display showing the 9 human worlds that remained under human control. They've established what they call the Free Human Alliance. Earth is still their capital, and they've managed to maintain supply lines between their remaining territories. How is that possible? Our forces control all the major shipping routes. They don't use major shipping routes anymore. They've developed a network of small, fast ships that can avoid our patrols. Their civilians have become expert smugglers and blockade runners. Every merchant captain seems willing to risk death to support their cause. Veltar studied the tactical data. The humans had abandoned conventional warfare entirely. Instead of building massive fleets to challenge Council ships directly, they had created thousands of small, expendable vessels that struck at Council supply lines and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. It was a strategy that should have failed. Small ships couldn't match the firepower of Council dreadnoughts. But the humans weren't trying to win fleet battles anymore. They were trying to make the war too expensive to continue. What's the situation in the rest of the galaxy? Veltar asked. Commander Kaleth's expression grew even darker. That's the real problem, Ambassador. The war has destabilized our entire sphere of control. He changed the display to show Council space as a whole. Red indicators marked areas of unrest throughout the galaxy. 17 member species have requested increased autonomy in their local affairs. The Thracians have stopped sending their annual tribute shipments. The vegan colonies are reporting technical difficulties with their resource extraction operations. And we're getting intelligence reports that suggest some species are secretly communicating with human resistance groups. This was what Veltar had feared most. The war with humanity wasn't just about conquering 23 worlds. It was about maintaining the Council's authority over 847 worlds. Every day the conflict continued. Other species saw that the Council could be fought, and sometimes even beaten. An aide approached Commander Kaleth with an urgent message. After reading it, the commander's face went pale. Ambassador, we have a problem. The humans are planning something called Operation Last Stand. What kind of operation? Intelligence suggests they're concentrating their remaining forces for an attack on our main fleet base in the Centauri system. It appears to be a suicide mission designed to cripple our ability to maintain control over human space. Veltar felt a chill run through his body. How many ships are they planning to use? Every remaining human vessel, military and civilian. According to our intelligence, they're planning to ram their entire surviving fleet directly into our base. The plan was insane by any rational military standard. The humans would sacrifice their entire remaining space force for the chance to damage Council operations. It was exactly the kind of desperate gesture that had characterized the entire war. "We can't allow this attack to succeed," Veltar said. "If they destroy our main base, we'll lose our ability to project force throughout the sector." Commander Kaleth nodded. "I've already ordered our reserves to Centauri. We'll meet them with everything we have." 3 days later, the largest space battle in galactic history began in the Centauri system. The human fleet consisted of 837 ships of every description: military vessels, converted cargo haulers, passenger liners with improvised weapons, and even small private spacecraft that could barely carry enough fuel to reach the battle zone. Leading the fleet was Admiral Sarah Chen in the battleship Defiance, humanity's last remaining capital ship. She opened a channel that broadcast to both the human fleet and the waiting Council forces. "This is Admiral Chen to all human vessels and any Council ships receiving this transmission. We didn't start this war, but we're going to finish it. Today we show the galaxy that some prices are too high to pay, and some freedoms are worth dying for." The human fleet attacked with the same desperate courage that had characterized the entire war. They ignored conventional tactics and focused on a single objective: destroying the Council's main base at any cost. Captain Rebecca Stone, now commanding a squadron of converted merchant vessels, led her ships directly into the Council's defensive grid. Her final transmission was broadcast throughout the battle zone. "For Kepler, 442b. For Governor Martinez. For everyone who chose to die free rather than live in chains." The battle raged for 18 hours. When it ended, the human fleet had been completely destroyed. But so had the Council's main base and most of their reserve fleet. The humans had traded 800 ships for over 600 Council vessels and the most important military installation in the sector. Ambassador Veltar received the battle report in his quarters on Proxima Majoris. The numbers were devastating. The Council had won the battle, but they had lost nearly their entire remaining military force in the process. Commander Kaleth's final report was brief. "We no longer have the ships necessary to maintain control over human space. We barely have enough vessels left to patrol our core worlds." But the real shock came 12 hours later. Reports began arriving from across Council space. On 37 different worlds, member species had declared independence from the Council. The Thracian Empire announced it was withdrawing from all Council agreements. The Vegan Federation declared itself a neutral power. Even some core worlds near the Council capital began demanding greater autonomy. 800 years of careful control were unraveling in a matter of days. Veltar stood in his quarters, looking out at the ships in orbit around Proxima Majoris. Once, those ships had represented the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Now they were all that stood between the Council and complete collapse. His communication system activated, showing an incoming transmission from an unexpected source. The face that appeared on screen belonged to President Maria Santos, the elected leader of the Free Human Alliance. "Ambassador Veltar. This is President Santos broadcasting from Earth. I understand you've been trying to reach our government for several days. Resingling divines to the Rublum to men. I, Mekansi. Ambassador Veltar. Resingling divines to the Rublum. Resingling divines to the Rublum to manist. Our firsid fiverman attention." Veltar composed himself. "Madam President, the Council is prepared to discuss terms for ending this conflict." President Santos smiled sadly. "Ambassador, I think you misunderstand the situation. We're not interested in negotiating with the Council anymore. We're too busy helping other species establish their own independence." The transmission ended, leaving Veltar alone with the realization of what had really happened. Humanity hadn't just won their own freedom. They had broken the Council's 800-year monopoly on galactic civilization. 6 months later, Veltar received his final message as a Council ambassador. It came from Earth, but not from any government official. It was from an organization called the Galactic Freedom Foundation, and it was addressed to all species throughout the galaxy. To any world, any species, any people who have been told that freedom is impossible, that independence is impractical, that resistance is futile. Know that there is another way. The galaxy is wide enough for many different forms of civilization. No. 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 The Free Human Alliance offers friendship, trade, and mutual assistance to any species that chooses independence over subjugation. We will not force our values on anyone, but we will defend the right of every sentient being to choose their own path. The choice is yours. But remember, some things are worth fighting for, and some prices are too high to pay. If you choose freedom, you won't stand alone. Veltar deleted the message and began drafting his resignation letter. For the first time in 8 centuries, the galaxy had a choice between 2 different visions of civilization. And for the first time in 300 years of diplomatic service, Veltar wasn't certain which vision would ultimately prevail. The age of the Galactic Council was ending. The age of choice was beginning. And it had all started with a single word from a stubborn species that refused to negotiate their freedom away. No.